So this is the video that I have been avoiding for years. I have been thinking about it and had one reason or another not to make it. I'm just going to go with overall, I wasn't ready. But now I'm ready and I'm going to share the tea. So, some warnings, disclaimers. I want to give a blanket trigger warning because I'm talking about what it was like to be a counselor, which means I might talk about some of the issues that are brought up in counseling. So if any of those are like a trigger for you and you can't hear about them, please click off this video and don't watch it, okay? I do have like a little script. I have like some bullet points of things I want to touch on for each of the main reasons. I think I have like 8 main reasons, but then I have bullet points. So there might be things that I bring up that might be triggering to you. So just trigger warning, okay? I'm not going to give trigger warnings throughout the video. Just know that you're watching a video about counseling, so I might talk about lots of topics related to that. Also, warning to anybody who is currently a therapist and is questioning whether they want to stay a therapist or not, or if you're thinking about becoming a therapist. If you want to stay a therapist, don't watch this video. Just don't. Because I might say something that you experience and then you might be like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't do this. So if you don't want to be potentially swayed and you want to stick to, I'm a therapist, I like my role, I want to stay in my role, or I'm not ready to leave, whatever, don't watch this video. Okay? All right. Now that we've gotten those out of the way, one other thing, one other disclaimer. I am no longer a mental health therapist. After I closed my practice in 2019, my license expired that year, maybe around the same time or a few months later, I think. I did not renew my license. I sent back my board certification. So I am not a therapist, 100% not a therapist in any legal capacity. So this is all my opinions. I'm reflecting on what it was like to be a counselor, why I quit counseling, essentially what I wish I would have known. So yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. Reason number 1 is about essentially how this was my family role and my identity before I even became a counselor professionally. I was the emotional caretaker in my family growing up, the one who was the helper, the one who listened. And I learned that my value in my family system came from helping others, from trying to solve their problems, from listening to them vent. And I realized over time that that way of being for me in the world became like a tick, like a compulsion almost. Like I couldn't not do it a lot of times. That when I would hear people talking, like maybe in my friend group or at dance, or even people I didn't know, like in public places, if I overheard a conversation, I would feel like I have to help them. Like I have to share wisdom, or I have to talk to them about, that's a cognitive distortion, or well, what if you look at it this way, in a therapeutic way, not like in a I know the answer way, but like I needed to essentially be a counselor to anybody that I met, because that's what I was so used to being. Like I was that all the time. So then I became that professionally. And then after I closed my practice, it became even more apparent after I closed the practice, because like I wasn't a counselor anymore. I wasn't having sessions, yet I was still behaving this way all the time with people that I came across, that I ran into. There's a counselor, there's a creator on Instagram that makes videos about this. about counseling in general, but also what it's like to be a therapist. Her name's Jennifer Ann Counseling on Instagram if you want to look at it. And while the reels are funny, the jokes about what it's like to be a counselor, it's also very sad. And this was one of them that I saw from her that I resonated with. It wasn't for her, it wasn't about her family doing this, but she went on like a trip with friends or something, or on a hike, and she was essentially being a counselor to them while they were on a hike. So she would say to her friends, like, so how are we all feeling? How's everybody feeling in their bodies? And like using her therapy skills and her therapeutic language to guide the hike experience, essentially. So if you want to see other reels like that, you can look at her page. And let's see, realizing later. So in hindsight, I realized that counseling was the job that most aligned with my role that I was given in my family system, and how I learned that I get love, acceptance, and approval. And also that was what was most reinforced in terms of my skills as a person. Like, you're the helper, you're good at helping. Oh, okay, yeah. So hence, this is the path I took. And I actually remember a conversation with my dad. I remember I was having a hard time deciding what major to choose. And I still really hate that question. And even now, like as I'm creating this YouTube channel and building it, like, what's your niche? You need to niche down. I am not niching down. Let me be clear. I'm not putting myself into a box. But yeah, I couldn't decide. I couldn't pick just one. And I remember asking my dad, and he gave me advice based on his worldview. Like that's what he could offer me. And he worked in the government, and he had, a service job that was very heavy and also depressing, very stressful, a lot of responsibility. And I remember telling him, like I see you're stressed and anxious and angry and kind of miserable all the time, but like you still do this job. Like, why do you do this job? And like, should I choose counseling? Because I was very much interested in like psychology and health. I took a Psych 101 college level course in high school, and I loved that class. And I had also gone to counseling in high school. That was my first experience being a client. So having that experience, it was so helpful for me in high school, because I was stressed all the time. I struggled with a lot of perfectionism. I went to an all-girls private Roman Catholic school that was very stressful. The grading scale was elevated, so like an A was a 93 to 100, and a B was like an 82 to, what was it, 93 or something. A C, like you could get a C, but everywhere else it was a B. And then they were all college level courses anyway. So it was just very hard. And that experience of going to counseling in high school really helped me to survive high school. And I liked what I was learning in my Psych 101 class. So I thought, okay, well, I'm interested in this, and everybody tells me I'm already good at this anyway. in when I help other people, when I listen to other people, when they're stressed, when they're angry. And I remember talking to my dad, and my dad said that for him, it was rewarding and worth it. So even then, I was still seeking external validation, not listening to myself, what I wanted. And that was just very much like, that was the worldview and the training and the guiding that I was given. So I didn't really know that I could choose differently. I didn't really know that that would be acceptable and that I would still be safe and loved and that I would succeed and be good at it. And so I remember him saying that and me being like, oh, well, he knows the answer. Like, I should do what he says. So I did. And looking back, I wish I hadn't, but you know, what can you do? What can you do? So let's see here. Yeah, so I, over time, was gradually questioning, was this really me? Did I really choose it? And the conclusion I came to was, well, I chose it, but it wasn't based on me. It was based on what I was taught. It was based on what got me love, affection, approval. It was based on what was acceptable to my community. So reason number 2 is emotional exhaustion and compassion fatigue. That is a big reason why I left the field. This sounds like it's obvious that you're listening to trauma and pain all day, but it didn't really compute to me how much that takes a toll until I was doing it, until I also learned and saw that there are other ways, that I don't have to be this, that I don't have to stay in this role self that I didn't consciously choose. So listening to trauma all day is very draining. Think about if you've ever had a friend or a family member that you've helped in a crisis and you've been the support to them, like maybe they were cheated on or maybe their family member died or whatever it is, and you were there for them for that immediate time of the crisis, and you sat with them and you listened and they cried all day and they couldn't get off the couch and you had to make sure they drank water and all those things. So imagine if you're being that kind of caregiver every day and you're doing it for 4 hours, 5 hours, 7, 8 hours a day, every day. Now there's a range of, how severe is the distress for the client, and that can range a lot. And I also found, for me personally, in my practice and all the clients that I saw, every single person has trauma. So you can't be like, oh, I only want clients that have nothing wrong with them. Like, that's not how counseling works. Or clients who are happy, that's not the point of counseling. So you're going to be listening to a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and a lot of horrible, horrible things, like the deepest, darkest, most painful things that people have ever experienced in their lives. And doing that all day for years, it's hard. It's really draining. There's a name for that. It's called vicarious trauma. So you can essentially be traumatized by hearing their trauma. And I often felt very depleted after work, very tired, very drained. And it left almost no space for me to have other relationships outside of that and to have my own life. So like I remember I would try to sometimes hang out with girlfriends after work. Like they would come over, we'd have like a little happy hour at home, hang out, catch up. And they would be talking to me, sharing their stories. And I would be like, wait, what? What did you say? Wait, what? And I literally could not hold on to new thoughts, to new information. It was very hard for me to listen. Like I had a limit to my active listening capacity by the end of the day. So something that I kept doing is I kept telling myself that like, once I get to my own private practice, then I'll be happy. Then I'll have my own say. I can choose my prices. I can choose how many clients I see. I can choose what presentation of issues clients come in with. I can choose with the level of risk that I'm okay treating, etc. And it did get better like those things did help. They did lighten the load when I had my own practice and I could make all those choices versus when I was at an agency and I didn't have as much say. But it didn't alleviate everything. Alleviate all of that. Alleviate. It didn't alleviate or relieve all of that weight of like having compassion fatigue and emotional exhaustion from hearing other people's pain all day and from being emotionally available and present for all of that and holding that like in a safe space for people. Another piece about this, towards the end of my counseling career, one of my close friends, counseling close friends, she was creating a like continuing education class for her colleagues, and it was about compassion fatigue. And I remember I was at her house and she asked me if she could present it to me to practice and give her feedback, and I said yes. And the feedback I gave her was like, that is so depressing. Please do not lead with like the statistics that you led. Like, how about you do it this way instead? I don't remember exactly the way I told her to change it, but the important part, or the part that stuck out to me, was the rates of suicide or suicidal ideation among therapists. And I was very depressed at that time too, because I was super unhappy in my career, and it was, I was getting all these insights about like, oh, I didn't actually choose this. Like, I wouldn't have chose this had my upbringing been different. So I was very much afraid that I was going to get more depressed, that I would experience this, that, yeah, it was terrifying to me. So then this friend brought this up another time when I was depressed and crying to her about something. And I remember I lost it and I kind of yelled at her and I was like, don't you ever tell me these statistics again. Like, I'm not going to be part of that statistic. I'm out essentially. And I think that was probably pretty close to the time that I decided I'm not doing this anymore. Like, this is harmful to me, to my life, to my own well-being. I'm not going to take this on for other people anymore. So you can do some research about those statistics if you want to know more, but they, I have some written down. Let me see here. They're high in my opinion. Let's see. A sample from 1994 of 800 psychologists, 61 reported clinical depression, and I was not a psychologist. I was a mental health counselor. I have a master's, not a doctorate. Let's see. 1 in 4 disclosed they felt suicidal. Another sample, another study of 1,000 psychologists, 62% were depressed, 42% had suicidal ideation. A 2009 study found that 40 to 60% had at least some disruption in their professional functioning due to burnout, anxiety, depression. So, like, why am I doing this for my career? If this is the cost, like, this cost is too high for me, in addition to all the other costs that I'm going to go through and reasons why I left counseling. Plus, clinicians who lose a client to suicide, that also increases their own risk of experiencing suicidal ideation. There's also a lot of stigmas still around like the helper also needing help. Like, you're a therapist, like, why aren't you okay? Because I'm listening to trauma all day. That's why. That's why, babe. So Oh, I don't actually know if I included that. I'm going to say it here. I might repeat it again later. But another part of like being a good therapist is going to therapy. So you like have a place to also share and kind of like unload everything that you're hearing. B, to keep your own stuff in check. Like everybody has stuff, you know? So we don't want to have our own things, our own problems, our own issues be creeping into the counseling session. So then you're like always in counseling. Like you're listening, you're being the therapist, you're in counseling, then you're going to counseling. Then anytime something painful happens in your life, like you have a breakup, somebody dies, you have a health issue, like anytime you experience some sort of adversity, then you're back in counseling again as the client. And then there's never like I'm well enough to not be in counseling, which I don't like, and I don't agree with that. I don't think that we should live in a world where everyone is dependent on going to a counselor because they experience some adversity. So, yeah, I'm not going to get into all of my worldviews about that, but you can just imagine. Like, I think people should have more support overall in the world so that I don't like this system of like everybody, go see a therapist on your own and like, yeah, I don't like it. Okay, so let me see what else. I'm looking at my notes. Another piece of this emotional exhaustion and compassion fatigue is that thinking is also contagious. Social contagion, synchrony. I'm saying that wrong, I think. When you hang around the same people, you kind of start to think like them. So I was only hanging around therapists, and I mentioned how it was like a tick. Like I would always start to use like my counseling verbiage, my counseling way of talking. I was like that because those are the people I was hanging around. That's how I was talking. That's how people were talking to me. And you're also, as a therapist, you're hearing all the ways, if you're working with people who have suicidal ideation, you're hearing all their ideas about suicidal ideation. So then if you become depressed, you might remember those thoughts that those clients shared with you. So it makes sense to me, that statistic about how if you have a client who dies from suicide, you're more likely to experience suicidal ideation. And also, if you've heard that that phrase of like the top 5 people that you hang around with most, you're going to be like that group of people essentially. So I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to change how I thought, how I spoke, how I show up in the world. So I needed to get out of those spaces for my own health and well-being and for my own growth and, yeah, longevity, I guess. I'm just taking a look at my notes here. I also have healthcare workers experience higher rates of depression, physical illness, and anxiety compared to the general population. So I experienced all of those. Let's see. Mirror neurons can cause us to absorb and feel moods and emotions of people around us. Chronic stress weakens the immune system, higher cortisol. Healthcare workers are 2 times more likely to experience depression than non-healthcare workers. That's horrible. Yeah, so I felt like for my own, I needed to take care of myself because nobody else was going to be taking care of me to the extent that I was pouring out my energy to everybody else. So that was another reason why I had to quit counseling and leave the field. Reason number 3 is the responsibility and liability. So I had a lot of fear around making mistakes as a therapist. The weight of that is so heavy. You are responsible whether someone harms themselves or not. If they harm themselves and like other people know about it, like obviously if a client unalives themselves, people are going to know about that. And your records are going to be gone through with a fine tooth comb to see, therapist, where did you mess up? Because this is probably your fault. So that is a huge responsibility. And that's like the way I was taught about that, that's how I felt. That's how I viewed it based on how I was taught to handle any sort of issues around a client's risk. Like they need to stay alive, and if they're not, you need to do everything possible, which makes sense. Like you need to keep them alive. But then if something happens and they are not alive, then I had so much fear of the board and of all of that responsibility being on me, even if I did everything possible in my power to keep this person alive. So it's just a very heavy weight to live with every day of your life, every day of your career. And I had mentors, I had supervisors that would tell me, like, don't bring that home with you. Don't be thinking about that after work. Like if you've done your due diligence and you've done all the things you're supposed to do, you've gone through your checklist of all the actions you're supposed to take, you can't bring that home with you. You can't hold yourself responsible, which from a logical standpoint, that makes sense. But emotionally, that's very hard to do, to always separate yourself. Because for me, I'm highly empathetic. I like people. I care about people. If I had a client that was experiencing thoughts like that, even though I had done everything I was supposed to do, I would still get so anxious every time. And I would have to call a colleague to be like, let me go through with you all the things I did. Did I miss anything? And have somebody double check my work. And I would still like think about them over the weekend. So it wasn't like I was ever free of the stress of that. I guess maybe there are some therapists who can do that. I found I could not. And when it would come up, I would try to like convince myself and talk myself through it. Like, nope, you did everything. Nope, you consulted. Nope, you documented. Like you did everything. Like it's out of your hands. You can't be like following this person every day, making sure they're alive or, not harming themselves. So it's even that, like, even if I could distract myself away from it and get back to the present moment, it was still something that would repeatedly come up because, well, I care about people. So it's a heavy weight to have to hold every day. Let's see. Documentation requirements, ethical responsibilities. Oh, I talked about that earlier, about how if I saw a client out in public, it was my responsibility to like leave the venue, to not make the client uncomfortable. I'm tired of shrinking my life for clients, so that was a big reason for me to leave. Also, sort of in this light, I got really tired of the pathology model. Counseling and like the health system, at least Western medicine, looks at people from a model of pathology, that something is wrong with you if you are experiencing these symptoms, this cluster of symptoms per disorder. I got really tired of diagnosing people because to me, like, okay, let's say a loved one died and now they're experiencing clinical depression. To me, that is a normal response. That is not pathology. I mean, I guess it's pathology in the sense that it's not their normal, everyday, regular self when they haven't experienced a huge loss. Sorry, I feel like my voice is cutting out here. Okay. Yeah, I don't like diagnosing people. I also don't like being diagnosed. I still find that there is so much stigma around mental health. I haven't liked it personally. And then also, like in counseling, I was taught not to share the diagnosis with the client unless they ask, because the labels are or can be debilitating and so harmful to people to have such a negative label attached to them. It's not the same as, like, let's say you get a sinus infection. Like, technically that's pathological too, because that's not your normal functioning of breathing, and I don't know how your mucous membranes are responding to air. Like, there's, I don't know, a bug or a virus or something. But it's not like people, I don't know, look at you like, oh, you had that? Oh yeah, I had that once too. Like, I don't know, there's just a difference between if you have some health condition that's seen as like more healable, more normal, like, oh, everybody gets sinus infections sometimes. But like, oh, if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you're, whatever, fill in the blank diagnosis, it's looked down upon still. So I just got really tired of the pathology model and living in that as like what I talk about every day. Like, I'd rather talk about what's right with people and what's beautiful in the world and what's exciting and what's new and what works well, even if it looks like it's bad. Like, being depressed, I don't know, how can that, I feel like that is adaptive. Like, the system is supposed to work that way. You're supposed to be sad when you lose a loved one, Anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. Let me look at my notes again. Tired of pathology model and diagnosing people. Okay, so I said I understand it's part of the insurance system, and it gets people treatment because then insurance will pay for it. I said, and it makes normal reactions to stress and trauma bad, even if their system is functioning appropriately. Like, their system is trying to calibrate from the stress, from the trauma. Yeah. Okay, I feel like I'm not explaining this well, but I'm just going to move on. I hope you get it. Ask me if you have questions. Okay. Next is the lifestyle of a therapist. That is reason number 4 why I left counseling. It's very difficult to take vacations when you're a counselor because clients want to see you. They don't want to mess up their routine. They get attached to having time to see you and to talk to you and to have that like pressure release in a way from their life or from whatever difficulty they're experiencing. And also, if they have risk, like if they're a higher risk client that does need to be seen more regularly, that cannot tolerate breaks, it's very hard to take vacations. And then even if you do take a vacation and you find a way for them to stay safe, or you have clients that are like pretty stable right now, you might still be thinking about them, or something might happen in their life unexpected and they might call you for like an emergency session while you're on vacation. So you're still always on call, which I didn't like that. I don't like being always on call and feeling like even when I'm out of the office that I'm still tied to my clients. Like I couldn't truly disconnect from being a counselor, being out in the world in my own life. So still feeling responsible even when I'm off the clock. And then I have the thing I already told you, also difficulty being present when talking to friends or family because I had heard so much pain and trauma. I had spent so much energy in active listening that like my short-term memory could not take in any more information. I could not pay attention and be present to any more conversations. And even sometimes trying to like decompress at home and watch Netflix, sometimes I couldn't even pay attention to like what I was watching. So then trying to relax was also like not relaxing because I kind of just had to like do nothing or sleep, but sometimes I wouldn't be tired enough to sleep. So yeah, it just was very draining. Okay, reason number 5. What are we on here? The impact on my personal identity. Feeling like I have to be professional all the time, whether I'm in session or not. Fear of being seen dancing. So I shared this in my last video, the 7 years later, part 2. So I would sometimes go out to clubs with girlfriends, like on the weekends, and I would be afraid to like really dance and let loose because what if a client sees me at the club and thinks I'm unprofessional and then reports me to the board and then I lose my license? And then I lose a client and then I don't have enough money to pay my bills because, I don't know, clients think I'm unprofessional because I'm dancing in my off time. Or when I went to a heels class and the instructor hired a videographer and was going to film the class performing it at the end so it would look like a music video or a hip-hop video. And I was afraid to do that because I was afraid that it would show up online and again a client would see me dancing in a heels class being sexy. Oh my goodness, can't have that. So I shrunk my life down. I didn't go to heels classes after that. I rarely ever posted anything online. I had every single privacy setting on for social media. And I was tired of doing that. I was literally sacrificing my whole life just to be a therapist. Fear of my clients seeing parts of my personality. Like, I felt like being a counselor, I kind of had to be neutral and acceptable to everybody because you can't bring your own stuff into the session. So you can't really have opinions. I mean, that makes sense in the therapeutic relationship, but there's such a high cost to being a therapist. And being myself was part of the cost. So I was no longer willing to tolerate that. Let's see. Feeling like my life was shrinking, I was living for others. Yes, okay. So next, reason number 6 is the business and financial realities. Counseling is a very low-paying profession for most therapists. You have to spend years and years getting education. You have to have a college degree. You have to have a master's degree. You have to go through, at least in Arizona, 3,200 hours of supervised practice before you can get your professional license to practice independently if you choose. So as a associate counselor where you're doing your supervised hours, you make very low pay for that. I think I made like I don't know, $30,000 maybe a year when I was doing those hours. You get paid very low. And getting a master's costs a lot of money. Then when you go to work with clients, you could do cash pay, which is the best way to make the most money, obviously, because you can choose your own rates. But then not a lot of people, or there's, I would say, less people who can see you at those higher rates for you to actually make a decent living. So most therapists, at least that I know of in private practice, take insurance, which the insurances that I was on at the time, they paid, I think, about $85 a session. And then if you're working for a company, they're obviously going to take a cut. They can't pay you the full amount. If you're in private practice, while you may take the full $85, you still have to pay fees that an agency would have paid. So you have to pay like your own licensing fees. You have to pay for all your own continuing education. You have to pay for an office. You have to pay for your like electronic health record that you use, office supplies, other certifications, like say if you do like an EMDR certification, that falls under continuing education. But still the costs, it seems like it's not that much, but they all add up, and I found it to be too high in comparison to like what I was making. It took a lot from my my overall like take-home pay. So relatively low pay compared to the educational requirements and the level of responsibility. I think those are very out of balance. I personally think that counselors should be paid as much as like doctors and lawyers. There's a heavy administrative burden. You have to take very, very precise notes. Again, this goes back to the fear and risk and liability that should anything happen, should your notes ever be audited by the board, they had better be pristine, or you risk like losing your license pretty much. If you are taking insurance, you have to file claims. So there's that paperwork, or if there are denied claims, you have to deal with insurance, which takes more administrative time. Also, like prepping for clients, if you have to research something for clients, etc. So there's a lot of like unpaid work behind the scenes. That administrative work, you're not getting paid for those hours. You're getting paid for when you're in session with a client. And to make a good living, like I think the last time I looked, right now in 2026, to have a livable wage, I believe for a single person is $105-ish thousand a year, following the 50, 20, 30 budgeting rule. So 50% goes to like housing and living expenses. 30% goes to wants, like vacations, taking fun classes, going to events, etc., like living life well. And then 20% goes to savings and investments. So much talking, my throat is getting dry. So for an example, I looked up BetterHelp. That's, I think, something that a lot of us hear their advertisements about. If you look at BetterHelp's website, the section for counselors, to see like how much counselors can make depending on how many sessions they see. I looked it up recently. 20 sessions per week, the counselor would make $46,000, almost 47. If they see 25 clients a week, they make almost 62,000. 30 sessions a week, almost 78,000. 40 sessions, 115,000. So 40 sessions a week is a lot. Like for me, towards the end, I mean, I was burnt out at the end of my practice For me, I only wanted to see 12 clients a week. 25 is, let me see here. 25 hours a week is about full time if you consider how much admin and like client prep work, dealing with insurance, writing notes, all of that is close, at least for me, was close to 40 hours if I saw 25 clients in session. So it's not the same as like a regular 40-hour job because there are those hidden unpaid hours of work that you still have to do. So if you're seeing 25 clients, you're only making $61,000 and maybe you paid $30,000 for your master's degree and now you have an office and business expenses and you don't get to be yourself and you can't have fun outside of counseling clients because what if a client sees your personality and they think you're unprofessional or they don't like your personal values or whatever. And you have to make sure that they don't unalive themselves and you only get paid $60,000 a year for that. So it's a really horrible, horrible business model. Horrible business model. Gosh, I'm so upset about it. I can't even say the words. Versus like compared to a lawyer, I did a quick Google search. The median in 2026 is 151,000. And the mean ranges from 176,000 to 185,000. So a lawyer also has an advanced degree, similar to a master's. It's a different degree, but still it's the next level up. But counselors, well, you're lucky if you make $60K. So when I had my private practice, I did take insurance just so I would have some income, but I also did cash pay, which helped me to make more money. So it is harder to do cash pay because most people don't want to pay cash pay. It is possible. There are clients, or not clients, counselors who do make a lot of money, but I would say that's more of the exception. I mean, you could also do group therapy. Say you have a group of 10 clients and they each pay $50. You make $500 in an hour. But then you also have to have a lot of groups. And then do you also need to be seeing those clients individually, or are they stable enough to just do group? So there's a lot of other things that go into that. Or maybe you write a book, or maybe you create some sort of product. I mean, those are other ways you could expand if you do want to be a therapist. But for me, given all the other costs, I didn't want to. The other thought I had actually about the business model, if counseling were more like chiropractors or like physical therapists, where you only see the doctor for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then you go to the tech, and the tech teaches you the skills, like the exercises or the stretches that you're supposed to do. If we had that model with counseling, that might be better for therapists financially, because then you could see more clients per hour. Like maybe you could see 6 clients per hour. And if they were each paying $85, my doodle is scratching the carpet. So like, let's say if clients came in for a specific problem, like I need to learn how to be interdependent in relationships, or I need to learn how to cope with anxiety, or I need to learn how to, I don't know, whatever it is. If there were like menu options and then they just came in for like a skills class or something where it wasn't having to listen to the whole story, which I get that that's helpful in healing, but just from a business perspective, I'm talking about the business perspective right now. having to talk and do one-on-one therapy for an hour is the part that slows down the ability to make more income. So, I mean, I don't foresee that happening, but I guess I think about that when I think about like, oh, this is so unfair when I compare it to other professions that are able to make more money when counseling is continually valued so low and does not really account for all of the unseen, unpaid hours of extra work that clinicians have to do, as well as the weight of the career. Like all the therapists, well, I shouldn't say all of them, a lot of the therapists that I know struggle routinely with burnout. So if they have to work so many hours just to make enough money to try to like barely be surviving, they're not going to be the best possible therapist, right? Like if they can barely meet their own needs, how can we expect therapists to really show up and be the best therapist to help you with your trauma if they can barely live? Like if they can barely meet their own needs. So, yeah, really, really bad model, business model. Let me see what else I wrote in my notes. Okay, and then also, if we go back to the part about taking vacations, again, if you can't be charging higher rates and still getting a lot of clients, then that means you can't afford to take off as much time to have vacations, to rest, reset, refresh, again, to go back to hear everybody's trauma and to help them with the horrible, awful things that they're experiencing in their life. Yeah, and then if you add on to the fact, if we go back to those statistics about how healthcare workers are more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and physical illness, so now they're not making enough and they're also ill themselves. So them staying in financial insecurity is going to perpetuate that problem. Yeah, so it's not good. It's not good. It's unreasonable the way, in my opinion, that counselors are paid. It's highly unreasonable. Okay, now we're on 7. Reason number 7 that I left counseling, the impact on your health. I was very stressed. I was burnt out chronically. I had a lot of physical health symptoms. I struggled with like GI issues on and off. And then they were really bad when I finally closed my practice at the end. I had neck problems. This is a problem that I don't see people talking about online. So let me tell you, most therapists are taught to sit leaning in. That leaning in is an active listening skill. So therapists, they might sit like this, take notes, they might be listening, but for a lot of it, especially when you start crying, they're gonna sit like this. Oh, wow. Wow, can you see? Can you see how my head is forward? And I am hinging at the hips, but I'm still, and if you're doing this all day long, yeah, talking to a client, that's a lot of strain on the neck. And that is creating a more forward head posture. So I definitely experienced neck problems from sitting like that so many hours a day. So if you're a counselor watching this, you need to sit back in your chair. Don't be doing this all day. You're gonna have neck problems, you're gonna have like tight traps. Yeah, physical burnout, feeling that profession, yeah, okay, I have that I was feeling that the profession was costing me my own well-being. So again, if we go back to the business model, if the therapist is barely making enough money to like afford to live, they can't really take vacations, they're depressed, they're anxious, and they have physical health problems, How much do you think they're working on their physical health and being active and going to the gym and cooking good food and making sure that they're like strong in their body and that they're not like falling prey to the effects of sitting all day and leaning forward like this? I know I wasn't. I was not. I was not taking care of my physical body. I did not have capacity to do that, holding everybody else's stuff at the rate, the pay rate that I was making. Like I just didn't have the time or the energy to do that. So it's very hard to balance all those things in that career, in my opinion. Okay, now let's see. We're on the last one. Home stretch. Okay. Let's see. Reason number 8. This is the last one. Is that I realized there were other things that I wanted from life. In 2018, a year before I closed my practice, my sister invited me to a professional development seminar. And one of the exercises was for us to just dream and imagine a life that we would love living. And of course I had like wanted things before, but I'd never really made dreaming that forefront in my mind and really allowed myself to like consider a different life. So when I did, it was like very eye-opening, also very sad and depressing that I had gone this far, this long in my life, shrinking myself, not taking care of myself, giving all my energy out to other people at the expense of myself. So it was very freeing, but also very painful at the same time. And I realized the thing that I love most, that gives me the most joy, the most energy, is dancing. I love being creative. I used to do like arts and crafts projects a lot when I was a kid. I would like make jewelry and make, I would like cover mirrors, like the frame, with costume jewelry, and I would do mosaics and I would draw and paint, and I loved being creative. And I kind of like quit doing that because I remember being told like you need to get serious, and like it was more important of like when was I going to clean up my project, when was I going to be done, versus like the creativity and the project being something worthwhile and something important and valuable, and where I also excel. I'm also good at that. So I like beauty, I like design, I like that I can be more expressive, be myself, show up in the world. I like exploring new things, and I love to learn. So I didn't feel like I could do that in my old life, in my old way of being a counselor. So it had to go. It had to go. So that's where I am today. I know this was a lot and a very long video. So thanks for watching. If you're a therapist and you have also left your career, please let us know below why you left, or if you're considering leaving, if any of these resonated with you. I know when I was leaving my practice, I definitely watched a lot of these videos, and there's tons of them all over YouTube of lots of counselors leaving. Oh, that was another thing. I was going to say that too with the statistics that I mentioned earlier, that there have been massive amounts of counselors leaving the field because of a lot of these reasons and others. So I know it's not just me. It's not just you if you're a counselor watching this. And it's okay. You can start over. You can do something else. Nobody gave me permission, but I'm going to give you permission in case you need it. It's okay. You can do it. You can leave if you want to. Okay, yeah, that's it. Like, subscribe, share, comment, and stay tuned if you want to, see what else I explore as I do other things in my life. Okay, bye.